Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the government's latest plans to show how nasty and moronic they can be at exactly the same time in order to appeal to the nastiness and stupidity amongst the very worst of our nature here in Britain. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, amongst everything else happening in the news this week, it keeps on coming, it's non-stop. We were reminded of just how messed up the UK is when the government revealed plans to process asylum claims thousands of miles from the UK. Foreign Office officials, who it's been reported are pushing back against this madness very, very strongly, have been asked to consider setting up detention centres in far-flung places, more recently like Moldova, Morocco or Papua New Guinea, which is a lot better than likes of the Ascension Islands, sticking them in the middle of the Pacific. But the idea, if we can call it that, is to never actually allow refugees into the UK at all, at least until some spurious claim is verified from their point. Now, at this point, I do have to remind people that despite what those nastiest and most moronic of us will say, the UK does not take in more than its fair share of refugees. In fact, we take way fewer than our fair share. Our nearest comparable neighbour, France, in terms of population and wealth, takes way more than us. Way more, with way less fuss. And bear in mind, France's population does not strike me as being very different to ours when it comes to the relative proportion being welcoming and the relative proportion being fairly unwelcoming. And this is not something that the Conservative government really care much about either. They know the numbers of refugees making their way to the UK are small enough to be easily accommodated. But it serves their political purposes to get on the bandwagon of ignorance. It helps distract people from their own incompetence in dealing with the things that genuinely affect people's lives. Genuinely. There are people who are just angry at the way their lives are going. Some people have good reason to be angry. Their life is not going as well as it should do. There are some people who just have that perception. But whatever it is down to other things the government are doing. It is not down to refugees. Hardly anyone knows a refugee. And perhaps this is another idea from Tony Abbott, who's the former Australian Prime Minister, who is now employed by the British government to advise on trade. Australia has adopted a similar system of very much offshore asylum claims itself, and has come in for strong criticism on human rights grounds for this, including from the UK government. And it would be a system that would cost a lot more than actually just dealing with refugees like a reasonably compassionate country would. I mean, such a system would actually serve nobody, objectively serve nobody, because for refugees, you would be treating them as subhuman, you would be prolonging their distress, and for us, it would be way more expensive than just dealing with it normally and make us look like complete arseholes into the bargain. Everyone loses. It's just a hateful, spiteful act. And there seems to be some debate even about who's going to take credit for it. Immediate thoughts, of course, would be Priti Patel, the Home Secretary. Obviously, processing asylum seekers in the UK is a Home Office affair, and Patel is known to be more than happy to demonstrate her nastiness towards marginalised groups. I saw someone describing her this week as the sort of person who would unplug your life support machine just to charge her phone. And an idea like this would absolutely have Priti Patel's fingerprints all over it. Spending billions of extra pounds of public money just to prove how deeply unpleasant she is? Yeah, she could do that. And as for the stupidity, we're also hearing an idea which is certainly seems to be coming from the Home Office, which is to put a wave machine in the English Channel. You know, so that when the weather is calm and relatively decent for crossing the stretch of water to the UK in a dinghy, they can make it much more hazardous in an attempt to drown more poor sods fleeing war and persecution in their own land. I mean, for all those complaining about the attempts to cross into the UK by dinghy, we have to understand that nobody wants to do this. Even those of us who aren't arseholes don't want to see these sights. It's dangerous. They should be able to make their claims safely with our government arranging safe passage for them. We should be facilitating this. To even put them in a position of having to make a potentially hazardous channel crossing is already a failure of humanity and a failure of international responsibilities, especially for a country that does not exactly help when it comes to stabilising certain parts of the world. But to then add in a deliberate, expensive, extra level of hazard. You know, this time, not due to being uncaring, not we don't want to help you. No, this is actively going out of your way, actively using resources to create a more dangerous environment for them, which lowers the bar still further on this government who keep redefining rock bottom. But it seems that Downing Street are also claiming the idea of this far-flung detention centre idea. It's been billed as a battle to show who can be the nastiest leader. Because with Boris Johnson's leadership likely to come under fatal pressure early next year, all eyes are on Michael Gove as the continuity candidate or Rishi Sunak as the equally deplorable but at least intelligent candidate. But there will be others who fancy a crack at the job. We may know that the others don't realistically have a chance, but at the same time their own egos will not accept that. And that could include Priti Patel. Or maybe she's just making a pitch to keep her job in 2021, regardless of who's leading, because it is believed that she could be for the axe, even if Boris Johnson continues in post. She and the likes of Raab and these other vacuous sorts were promoted to cabinet by Johnson specifically because they were loyal to his hard Brexit idea. Well, once whatever sort of Brexit is going to be delivered is delivered, he doesn't need idiots in his cabinet anymore, and he can potentially dispense with them. And I'd like to say that all of this is just a pissing contest of nastiness to appeal to a relatively small part of the population. Because, after all, who is going to be the Prime Minister of the UK for the next few years has got nothing to do with the British public anymore. They had that chance a few months ago and blew it. Now, it's going to be down to, in the first instance, a few hundred Conservative MPs and then a bit over 100,000 Conservative Party members. A small section of some of the nastiest amongst us. But unfortunately, it's not that simple. Because a credible poll has showed that there are more people that would be in favour of dumping refugees 5,000 miles away, and the question makes it clear that that's what we're talking about, than are not in favour of it. Now, okay, it's a minority, but it is still a larger minority than is against this idea. And there's a hell of a lot of people who don't seem to know, oh, would it be a good idea to send people fleeing war and persecution an extra 5,000 miles into the arse end of nowhere before processing their claims, keeping them in detention centres? Oh, let me think. I'm not sure whether that's a good idea or not. The fact that there's about a third of people not even sure, that's appalling. Absolutely appalling. And what I found desperately distressing was a disturbing proportion of them identifying as Labour voters. You know, we're no longer just led by a nasty government who persuaded people that they were good. Now even our population are officially knobheads. You know, try telling me again that we're not going down the same road that Germany did a century ago in dehumanising groups of people in the general population's minds in order to allow the government to commit the most terrible atrocities. We're absolutely going down that road. And frankly, until we can wrest control back of the spirit of the nation, we deserve the hardest of Brexits and international isolation that goes with it. Not that I think that any of these proposed measures will ultimately be brought in, I have to say. Like I say, we don't actually have a problem with refugees, and the Conservatives know that. This is not a political opinion, they know that as well. This is a distraction for them. You notice how they never jump on this sort of thing normally when things are going all right. They only ever do it when they need to desperately distract from their own incompetence. The fact that it's been happening quite a lot this year is because there's a hell of a lot of incompetence to distract from. You know, and that's all it is. It's not a problem to be solved. As such, we do not realistically think that they're going to go ahead with it. But as with so many aspects of politics, what you stand for is as important as what you do. After all, precious few people, even in politics, actually have the power to do anything on an individual basis. So it's very much about showing what you stand for, what you believe in. And standing for this shows us for what we are, which is not pleasant, not at all pleasant. And it's not how people were even a few years ago. A few years ago, people being asked this question would not have approved of it in the numbers that they have. But anyway, there it is. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.